Welcome to Leapcast. I'm your host, Dr. George James. Leap stands for leaders, entertainers, athletes, and performers. And I'm on a journey to connect with high achievers and highlight their unexamined human moments. Tune in to learn how these high-achieving Leap individuals were able to reach their greatest potential, face their most difficult challenges, and embrace the human moments that helped them along the way. If you want to get the episode highlights directly in your email, then head to theleapcasts.com right now to subscribe. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to Leapcast. I'm your host, Dr. George James, and I'm excited for our guest today. I'm thankful for all my friends that I get to bring on. Today, I get to introduce you to Jon Gordon, amazing friend of mine. You've probably all been familiar with him, his amazing books that are out. I think I saw 12 bestseller books, 5 children's books, and 24 total, if I get that right. So welcome, Jon. Thanks for joining me today.
George, great to be with you. And the first time we met was on the Today Show. We were both appearing on there together, and I thought, wow, this guy is really awesome. He's great at what he does. He's special, and so it's great to be with you.
Man, I remember that day on the Today Show. So many good moments that we had, and I learned a lot from you and our time. And I'm glad that we stayed connected. And so one of the ways that I like to start off is really talking about your leap, what we call leap story, which is really your journey. You're just maybe going far back before even you became the Jon Gordon we know now. How did you start off? What was life? What was your world like? If you can share a little bit of that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a interesting journey when you look back. Like, how did you get to where you are? Who decides to be a writer and speaker, right? And for me, it all began as a college athlete, struggling as an athlete in terms of the mental part of things, wanting to succeed, wanting to be positive, failing along the way, graduating Cornell University, and then trying to find my way in the working world, go to law school, drop out after a day, decide it's not for me. And then I was in Texas, followed my girlfriend in Texas, found my way back to New York, where I grew up, living with my parents, waiting tables, miserable, unhappy, and just not sure where my life is going, like thinking it's over. Like, yeah. It's done. Like, I don't know what I'm going to create. I don't know what I'm going to be. I feel like such a failure. All my friends are working on Wall Street. And here I was waiting tables back, living with my parents. And so I decided to move to Atlanta just on a whim with a friend from high school, go down to Atlanta, get an apartment, start waiting tables at Hula Hands. And I'm waiting tables and I'm looking for a bar.
How old were you at this point, waiting tables?
22 years old.
Yeah.
Bartending then eventually, because I'm thinking I got to make more money than just waiting tables. There's got to be a better way. And so I'm walking around Buckhead. I find a bar that's just opening, looking for bartenders. They invite me to try out. I try out. That's a whole other story, George.
But try out.
I try out. I don't even know how to bartend. Didn't even know how to bartend, but I said I did. I'm studying all the drink books. Yeah. Bought them at the bookstore. I'm researching drinks, trying to remember them. I can't remember anything. People are ordering all these types of drinks. I'm basically just pouring whatever I had in front of me into the glass.
He's like, this looks good. Here, take it.
Yes. People are like walking away like, oh, this is disgusting. And at the end of the night, the owners came up to me and they said, it's clear you have no idea how to bartend, but we love your energy. So we're going to hire you and teach you. And so that was really cool. They gave me that job. I wound up getting my master's in teaching at Emory at the time. So I'm bartending, getting my master's in teaching. I then started meeting all these young people bartending, eventually opened up a bar in Buckhead at 24, wow, right next to where I was working.
So you went from not knowing how to make a drink to opening up a bar.
Open up a bar. Wow. The guys who ran the bar where I worked, they became my partners at this new place that we were able to open up, because I was bringing all these people in to come in to see me. I was a natural marketer back then. So I was inviting all these people to come see me. I then started a nonprofit called the Phoenix Organization, and we raised money and volunteered for youth-focused charities. Wow. Did the Evander Holyfield Boys and Girls Club golf tournament, the Paralympics event. all these type of events. Met Billy White Shoes Johnson with the Falcons, started doing some things with him, and started to mobilize all these young people towards the community, making a difference, volunteering, fundraisers. So it was fun
Yeah.
meeting people. It was a social aspect to it. Some guys were there just because they wanted to meet girls, but you know what? They were coming.
Right.
Girls came because they wanted to meet guys, but everyone was making a difference. And here I am, early 20s, and I'm doing this. And then I ran for city council,
Oh.
politics, lost the election, although I came close to winning. I experienced the negativity of politics, of what it's all about, the lies. And a guy like me had no baggage whatsoever, and yet they attacked me. But I should back up a second. I met my wife 3 weeks after I opened up the bar in Buckhead, which was a good thing.
Yes.
And that kept me out of trouble. And then meet her, fall in love, get engaged, we get married, then we, have our daughter Jade. And so here I am in Atlanta. I run for city council. Right when we got back from our honeymoon, I run for city council. Not a good idea.
Great gift
Oh,
waiting.
yeah. Then I go to law school, back to law school,
Okay.
and Georgia State. And I go for a year and a half. And I drop out after a year and a half because I'm like, okay, this is not for me. I was doing it because my mom always wanted me to be a lawyer, I believe.
Okay.
So in my mind, it was like, okay, be a lawyer, be a lawyer, be a
I
lawyer.
know that feeling.
Yeah. Then I
It was
realized,
medical doctor.
yeah, medical doctor, medical doctor.
Right.
And then I realized I didn't really like the law. And so what happened was I went to go work for a .com, and I thought I was going to make my fortune. So I dropped out because I had this opportunity to go work for this startup technology company in business development. Got 100,000 shares, and I'm thinking I'm going to be rich, if this company takes off. So I drop out of law school, go do that, because most people want that kind of job out of law school anyway.
Right. Right.
So I
You
went
just
and
cut
did
the
that.
chase.
Right. Chasing money. Eventually, we have another child, Cole. So we have Jane and Cole. I'm in my 20s. And then the .com crashes. And we moved to Jacksonville. My partners were stealing from me in the restaurant business because I was no longer really involved as much.
Wow.
And so we moved to Jacksonville. My wife wanted to move to the beach. I'm still working for the .com, hanging on by a thread. Eventually, they fire me. And then there was this moment where my wife and I are fighting. I'm miserable. I'm negative.
Everything is crashing.
Everything's crashing. It's not how I envisioned my life to be. And I'm blaming her for why my life and our life is so bad. She has enough of my negativity. And she said, if you don't change, we are over. She gives me an ultimatum. I have to change, and I want to change. So I agree to change. And that begins this journey of working to become a more positive person. I asked God in that moment. I wasn't a praying person, but I became one in that moment. God, why am I here?
Yes.
What am I born to do? What is my purpose? And amazingly, I heard back. And writing and speaking came to me in that moment, like clear as day. I said, okay, I'm going to go do this. I don't know how. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what I'm going to speak about, but I'm going to encourage people the way I had been encouraged by the books I had read over the years. Og Mandino, The Greatest Salesman, and Illusions by Richard Bach. He also wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull and books like that. So Ken Blanchard, The 1 Minute Manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that began this journey of saying, I'm going to go do this work. So that's how I came to do what I do. It was out of the most painful, most challenging time in my life. Well, probably the second most now, but one of the most challenging times in my life. And that's how I came to do this.
I appreciate you sharing that, and that part of your journey, and really bringing us from like your early 20s. And I really like that you were also willing to share like failures. Like there were some places that we would call failures or pivots and both. And that throughout that, the accumulation of just negativity. And that sometimes we don't even realize how we're building negative energy over and over. And then bad things happen. We add it. And it just sounds like it was just piling up from, law school twice, people taking money from you, not winning the, city council race, marriage not going the way you want, and money just coming out of your pocket. That all those things will build negativity. I mean, if we even pivot to like the world we're in right now, so many people have felt that, right? Felt like so many things are not going their way, and I can imagine that they just build up a level of negativity. and your ability to hear your wife and make the change is just instrumental. Like, what do you think allowed you to hear her and shift? Because we don't often do that.
You have to be willing to change. I often say we may know we need to change, we may not want to change, but you have to be willing to change if change is going to happen. And so I was willing to make the change. I wanted to be a better version of myself. I didn't like who I had become with fear and stress and anxiety. I mean, I was beaten down. What most people are going through now or the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
I went through during the dot-com crash. So I went through that time. But I really believe I went through that time to become a light for others now.
Yeah.
I had to go through that to be someone who can help others through these challenging times. But what allowed me, I think faith. I really started to trust. I started to believe. I remember surrendering for the first time.
Mm.
And I remember just praying, like really praying. And that was where my faith journey began. And for me, I needed something greater. I think about, if you're not religious, that's okay. Because I think about addiction programs. They all believe in a higher
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. Exactly.
Why do they all believe in a higher power? Because on our own, we're not strong enough.
Yeah.
Our will isn't great enough. But when you connect to a higher power, and it's called a higher power for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
that power gives you strength. It gives you the ability to move through your challenge because you don't feel alone. And that is what I felt in that moment. For me, it wasn't religion. I felt a relationship. I felt a greater power moving through me. And that started to change me. It started to shift me as I started to try to find myself, find my purpose, and what I was meant to do. I also remember George thinking, I am miserable like this.
Yes.
Like I am miserable. I'm so focused on myself and my own success. And guess what? I am miserable being that way. So I didn't like myself and I didn't want to be that way. I made the decision. I'm going to write and speak and I'm going to make my life about others. I'm going to make a difference and I'm going to encourage others. The minute I made my life about others, I became so much happier in that moment.
Sometimes we're not that honest, right? We're not that honest with ourselves that we're miserable, and that we're creating a miserable environment. That once again, that we can bring in all this negativity and hold all this negativity and feel it and embody it and not really be aware of it. Our self-awareness sometimes can be so off, but yet we want things to be better. And it's great that you've been able to do that, because I know that you've been able to bring that part of you and bring light and joy and positivity, and that's been a really key thing for you. And I guess, when did you recognize that that was your lane? Because people can speak and write books and they figure out their niche or their lane. How did you recognize that this part was going to be your lane?
I started to research ways I could be more positive during that time. And as you know, this was during the emerging field of positive psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking 2001, 2002. It was just emerging. So I started to practice these ideas that I was reading about. I read you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So I started to take walks of gratitude. I called it a thank you walk. And I
Nice.
would walk every day and I would just walk and I would say what I was thankful for. And as I did that, what are you doing? You're flooding your brain and body with these positive emotions that uplift you rather than the stress hormones that slowly drain you and over time slowly kill you. So I was doing that and every day rewiring my brain from negative to positive. I was tuning into a different frequency with gratitude. So I'm practicing gratitude every day. I'm talking to myself instead of listening to myself. I wrote down a bunch of words and phrases of encouragement and affirmations in a sense. I'm getting stronger, healthier, better every day. I trust in your plan for my life, God. I
Mm-hmm.
believe great things are happening every day. I accept all of the clients that want to work with me and benefit from my gifts and talents. I would say that every day as I would walk. So I was
I like
literally
that.
shifting and reprogramming my mind from negative to positive. We get discouraged,
Mm-hmm.
we get down. People need to understand there's a battle going on in our mind.
Yes.
And if you allow the negativity to win, it will defeat you. It will destroy you. In a marriage, it will lead to divorce.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that there's always negativity coming in. We have to then counter that with encouragement, with words of life, with belief, with optimism, with hope, with faith, with trust. And so that's what I started to do every day. I started to take these walks of gratitude. And then those turn into walks of prayer, walks of trust, affirmation, surrender. And each day I'd come back from those walks. And what I realized was I was, again, weeding the negative, the garden of my mind, feeding the positive. And every day I was doing that, I then had more to now feed others.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, you can't share it. So every day you have to feed yourself to feed others. So I started a weekly positive tip back in 2002. I was one of the first newsletters out there sharing tips like this. Now everyone has a
Yeah.
blog, everyone has social media, everyone has Instagram where everyone's sharing tips. In 2002, I started to share weekly positive tips. 5 subscribers to my newsletter, George, my mother, my brother,
Nice.
best friend
Hey,
from college.
gotta have that inner circle.
Oh yeah, start sharing these weekly positive tips. But eventually people start sharing them. They start growing. So the things I'm now doing in my life, I'm now sharing with others. People are benefiting from it. It eventually led to a small publisher seeing me, seeing my work, seeing what I was sharing, loved it, said you should do a book. And I started to write. And that began this journey of now sharing positive tips, doing this work. And I realized I also was speaking about health, wellness, exercise early on. But I realized every time I spoke about health and wellness and telling people to sleep more and exercise and drink plenty of water, I felt like I was their mother trying to tell them what they should do. But when I was speaking about positivity, I was energized.
Yeah.
I loved it. So I was paying attention to how I was feeling when I was speaking, and it became very clear to me, this is what I love to do. It's what I love to speak about. I've got to focus on this, make this my, as you said, my lane, and really create a path to impact people with positivity. And I realized, again, my life's work. I'm a naturally negative person who needs to learn how to become more positive. And as I do, I become someone who's a really good teacher because I'm naturally negative. I know what it takes. And now I'm able to help others go through their challenges, their negativity to be a more positive person. It's my life's work. It's my calling.
I love that, and I really appreciate that you were doing the research and fully integrated yourself in the work that was out there. You were a pioneer in the field, but I love where you landed or where you ended just now in terms of you paid attention to how you felt as you were doing it. Not only were you changing your brain waves and changing how you thought and felt as you were practicing these affirmations on these walks, but when you were delivering, you recognize, oh, I like that. This feels good. And I think a lot of people out there are trying to be successful or trying to speak or trying to be of impact and don't recognize that relationship of that when you're doing it, there are things that will allow you to know, yes, this is the thing that really connects with you. And I love that you have been able to do that. And obviously, it's been a really great place for you to really encourage people.
Yeah, it's my life's work, right? And I get paid to go speak to companies and sports teams. If people knew all the sports teams I just spoke to literally in the last month, OU football, Clemson football, Texas A&M, Miami, Florida State, the Rams. I mean, if people knew like all these teams, I get to encourage them when I go there. But it's not just encouragement. I'm giving strategies and principles, talking about culture and leadership and how to be your best. But at the gist of everything, I'm a motivator. I'm an encourager. And that's what I'm paid to do, help people be more positive, overcome negativity. But it's like, wow, I get paid to do this. And I love it. And I would do it for free. I knew like, okay. And I often do it for free. Like, someone's struggling, someone needs help. A high school team asked me to talk to them on a Zoom or something like that. Can't do it all the time,
Yeah.
but I do it a lot. And you know what? That always reminds you of the work that you're here to do and why you do it. Again, when you know your why, you'll know the way.
Yeah.
You're not going to let obstacles get in the way. And too many people get burned out, but they get burned out for the wrong reasons. We don't get burned out because of what we do. We get burned out because we forget why we do it. Yeah. So if we can remember our why, remember our purpose, that will really keep us fresh. And you said earlier, brainwaves. I want to touch on that for a second because I think we're at the forefront. We don't even know yet how the brain really works and why people go towards the negative. And I've been thinking a lot about this lately. And what has been coming to me, I've been getting like these like sort of insights and downloads that the brain is like an antenna. Yeah. And it's not just the hardware where the activation happens. Like no one has ever found a thought inside of a brain. Everyone's talking about thoughts. They don't exist in the brain. They exist in consciousness. The
Mm,
brain is where the activation happens. And I truly believe the more the negative thoughts come in, the more you tune into them and
mm,
give them energy and power, what happens is those negative thoughts then start to actually cause the demise of the structure and the energy
mhm,
of your brain.
mhm.
Just like a plant, if you feed that plant negativity all day long, the plant's going to wither. And so does your brain. But if you feed your brain life and love and encouragement and nourish that brain, also with healthy foods and
Yeah,
water and wild fish like salmon, and you actually give it the nutrients it needs and also the energy it needs in the form of thought, because thoughts actually affect our brain. I'm convinced the more it does, it actually will give our brain life and create a healthy brain and a healthy antenna, which then tunes into a higher frequency. So the more we actually have a healthy brain, we tune into a higher frequency of love and joy and peace and positive thoughts. The more we go towards the negative, actually, the brain actually gets less healthy and is affected. And so the antenna is affected. And as a result of that, it tunes into more and more negative thoughts. Because think about it. Why does every mental health issue tune towards the negative and turn towards the negative? Like none of them turn towards the positive or tune into the positive. Oh, he's got a mental health issue. He has too many positive thoughts.
yeah. Right.
Why do they all move towards the negative? And it's got to be. And if thoughts are conscious based, which I'm convinced they are, there has to be a function where the brain is interacting with consciousness and thought in general, just like the radio station.
Yeah.
Right now, there's radio stations that they are being played over the airwaves, passing us by all day. And the only way you tune into that airway and that song or that music or that station, you tune that dial.
Right.
Well,
Right.
guess what? When we tune our frequency to a higher frequency, we tune into the higher thoughts that are there, or we tune into the negative thoughts that are all there.
No, I think
So
there's definitely a lot with that. And, we've seen when people have done brain scans, for instance, that their mood will show you what the activity is going on in their brain. And
right.
that, if someone's really sad or really happy. And so I think there's a lot there about what we feel and what we tell ourselves and how it directly impacts the brain. We went through supporting my mother with Alzheimer's, and I know that with what happens with the brain changes, right?
Yes.
It's not just memory, it's the whole kind of deconstruction of the brain. So
Yep.
I totally think, like, what you're saying, there's so much value there. And there's probably a whole lot of research that will come out of it.
I hope so.
I want to really quickly talk about, as you talk about how that impacts who we are and our development. I love that you have really focused on children, right, as a part of it, right? Most of your work is adults and sports teams, and I love that, and I'm encouraged by that, and we'll get back to that a little bit. But I really love that you've spent some time helping children at an early age. And even in my own family, right, we got this one, right, the energy bus for kids. And being in the mental health field, I'm always trying to help and support and do things for other people, and even within my own family. But it's always great to have an outside other voice. And this energy bus for kids has been one of those things in our family, where we would read this daily or in moments of stress or negativity, especially for our children. And I guess I wanted to just hear your thoughts about, why is it important to help our children to think about these things early, or to think about being positive or having, the positive energy. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, it means a lot that you actually read the book as a family. And I love to hear from families and people when they read the books and use it with their kids. And sometimes I'll have CEOs reach out and say, hey, I found out about you from your children's books for my kids. So you just never know how it's going to happen. But yeah, I love that I get to impact kids' lives. And, to me, it's important because we're developing
Yeah.
and the brain is developing, and positive kids become positive adults. And the more we can teach these kids at a younger age that they have the power to overcome their circumstances, that they're not defined by their circumstances, that they can actually take every thought captive and they have control of their minds, and they don't have to be a victim to their negative thoughts, right? They don't have to be a victim to energy vampires. They don't have to be a victim to people who are negative and say mean things to them. They don't have to give anyone that power. Gandhi said, I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet.
Wow.
And so the more we can teach this to kids, they learn how to navigate this world, overcome this world. Because let's face it, we will have to overcome negativity you know this very well, to
Hmm.
define ourselves and
Yeah.
define our team and define our family, define our future. So we have to overcome. So I love equipping adults and also teenagers. I wrote The Garden, which is great for teenagers,
Nice.
and now children, right? Helping them overcome and navigate this world. And the sooner, the better, because again, their brains are developing.
Yeah.
So the thoughts that are coming in, if they are fueling up with positive thoughts or negative thoughts, that's going to actually teach them a life of resilience, of grit, of optimism, of belief, of hope, and how they can turn things around. Someone just asked me this at a school. I was speaking in a school district yesterday, and the superintendent said, "Okay, Jon, this is great, but we have a lot of kids coming here from, impoverished homes, really difficult neighborhoods, and many of them are on the meal plan and so forth, and they're struggling at home. What do we do?" Well, one, as a teacher and as adults and as a community, we need to love these kids.
Yeah.
You may be the only positive voice
Hmm.
that they hear in the course of their day. So encourage them and love them and let them know that they truly are loved. That is the most powerful tool. The most powerful motivation we can give is actually love, right?
Yeah.
Loving someone, letting them know they are loved. That's important. And then teaching them that they have the power to overcome and they have the power to create their future. They're not a victim of their circumstance. Now, this doesn't mean that as a society, we shouldn't do everything we can to make sure that we create great environments for everyone. We should be making neighborhoods safe. We should be making them healthy. We should be helping them be diverse. We should do everything we can to create fairness and equity, everything. But it's never going to be. And it doesn't mean when it's not and it's wrong and as it has been in this world, it doesn't mean that you just say, well, the outside has the power, I can't
Right.
do anything. So we say it should be fair, but we know it's not. And because it's not, because there's evil in this world, because there is hatred, because there's negativity, then we have the power to be resilient, to overcome. And teaching that to kids, to me, is everything.
And I 100% agree the importance of starting that early, and especially in my work and trying to help people to navigate the challenges they face, the mental health, the negativity that comes with that, is giving them tools and resources. And, if they can start earlier or have some of that, the better. I like to end with like asking people these last four questions. One, you've been already talking about it, but I'm curious about, what are you working on now? Like, what are those things that you are passionate now, uh, or is yet to come? And then part two is, who would be someone you would love to work with that maybe you haven't already?
So I am working on this whole understanding of our state of mind, low state of mind, high state of mind, clutter, clarity,
Mm.
ways to overcome anxiety, fear, and stress, which again, accumulation of thoughts. Like if I drew two circles, George, one with 1,000 dots, one with 3 dots, which mind would perform at a higher level? Which mind would be happier?
Yeah.
Everyone knows it's the three.
Yeah.
And so clutter creates a low state of mind, a lot of thought. Clarity creates a high state of mind. We want more clarity. We know that anxiety and fear and doubt and insecurity and worry all creates a low state of mind with a lot of thought.
Yeah.
But if you ask someone, can you only have one thought and one experience at a time? The answer is yes. So you really can only have one thought at a time. Once you remind someone of that, their thoughts actually slow down and they'll start to see it a little differently. So I'm really moving in this area. That's where all my energy is going. It's what my talks were about during training camp,
Nice.
teaching them to have a high state of mind versus a low state of mind and how to find that high state and how to have more clarity instead of clutter. And my methods are working, my techniques are working. What I'm sharing is working. And I'm excited about where this is going. Like
I love it.
Garrett Kramer is a good friend of mine. And he initially taught me high state of mind, low state of mind. But then I realized the ultimate way to have a high state of mind is love.
Yeah.
And the way most of us have a low state of mind is through fear. So the universal truths help understand it
Mhm.
because truth is always simple. So this is where I'm going in my work and really helping it. I've never had a bigger response and a better response and more feedback and more people wanting to talk to me after a talk than sharing this. It's much deeper than this, but this is where I'm going and I'm excited about it because this takes you past like, oh, just be positive.
Yeah.
This helps you understand why we are negative.
Yes.
And I had three teenagers over the summer that I shared this with, that I sat down and taught this to, and all of them were depressed. And one was even in an ER 2 days before.
Wow.
And they've all shifted amazingly by teaching this. And the one question I asked that everyone could relate to is, do your negative thoughts come from you? And most people say yes. And I said to this young man, for instance, do you have a lot of thoughts in your head? He said, oh, so many. I said, are they wreaking havoc on you? He said, yes. They're like, I said, do they accuse you? Do they tell you not enough? Yes, all of it. I said, well, let me tell you something. Your negative thoughts are not coming from you. You know how I know? Who would ever choose to have a negative thought?
Right.
And he goes, you're right. I go, would you ever choose a negative thought? He goes, no, I wouldn't. He's like, so where's it coming from? I explained it comes from consciousness, and
Yeah.
thoughts are always coming in, and you're just tuning into them, but you don't have to believe the lies that they tell.
You don't.
And then I taught him how to tune into more of the higher level thoughts. Shifted completely. Kid is doing great now, like changed
I
everything.
love it.
And you see it and you go, wow, okay. I mean, the traditional psychological model would have had this kid in therapy for 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm not that there's anything wrong
Oh,
with that,
yeah. No, yeah.
but I think we got to combine it and help and go to a higher level of understanding and go to the next level. And once you understand your negative thoughts are not coming from you, you know what happens? You stop beating yourself up.
Hmm.
You stop having guilt and shame.
Hmm.
You realize when the thought comes in, oh, I don't have to believe it. And then you can choose another thought.
Yeah.
And then the cool thing is, as someone who's a person of faith, you realize, oh, this is biblical too, because the Bible says, take every thought captive.
Yeah.
So to me, it's actually psychological truth when you go into this model. It's consciousness level truth. And then also it actually, if you're someone who's biblical, it's biblical truth too, which is really cool.
Oh,
And love casts out fear. So the minute you focus on love, what happens? Fear dissipates.
yeah.
And too many kids today are worried and fearful about the expectations, the pressure, the noise, what other people think, social media. We blame social media, George. It's not social media. No, it's the fact that we're looking outside instead of inside.
Yeah.
It's that we're tuning into other voices and expectations instead of just loving what we do and loving the moment and trusting. And so I've had a lot of these kids now just focus on loving what they do,
Nice.
love the competition, love the schoolwork, love the dance, love the music, whatever it is, just love. Don't worry about what the outcome and what other people think. Love what you do, express yourself as an artist, and just focus on the love of doing that and not worrying about anything. And guess what happens? You wind up producing amazing work when you do that. And so,
That's great.
that's my next area. That's where I'm going. And the next book I'm writing is all about that.
Nice.
And I'm fired up.
Oh, I can tell, and I can feel it, and I love the multiple layers. And once again, right, those are the things that what you're saying, how I'm hearing is like when you can recognize it's from the outside, externalize it, it's not inside. Then you're like, okay, then there's good inside. And if I can tap into believing that I have good inside and all that negativity is outside, then I'm like, then there's so much more that I can do. And then it just goes from there. And I love the multiple layers. Who would be someone that you would love to work with that maybe you haven't?
I mean, from a client standpoint, I'd love to work with, a Chick-fil-A. I have not worked with them yet. In-N-Out Burger is one of my clients, and I got a chance to speak to a number of In-N-Out events recently, and I
Nice.
love them. Their culture's off the charts, and everyone says Chick-fil-A's culture is second to none. So I think they're a company that I would like to work with.
Well, that's great. Last two questions I ask folks is what does mental wellness mean for you?
I'm going to back up a second. I also would love to work with a tennis player like Novak Djokovic,
Yeah.
someone like that, or any tennis player who's struggling. I would love to share this with a tennis player because I know this would help a tennis player. So I would say I got to add that.
When you mentioned tennis, I mean, especially those sports like tennis where you really are there by yourself. There's no huddle, there's no dugout. There's like the coaches, when you're playing, it is just you in your own head. And you see tennis players, how they go great to bad just because of whatever they're thinking in that moment.
It's an ebb and flow. It's an up and down. And having spoken to all these NBA teams now, Major League Baseball, NFL, I haven't worked with tennis yet, and that's something I would love to do. So you asked me about what mental wellness means to
Yes.
me.
Yes.
Mental wellness means to me that you are loved and you don't allow the opinion of others to define you, and you know who you are, your identity, because we always get attacked in the place of our identity. When you know who you are and you know that you are loved and you know that you are loved and your job is meant to love others, right? When you love others, when you serve others, when you care about others, what happens is all that comes back to you. To me, that is mental wellness. The more we move from oneness to separateness, we move from positive to negative. So oneness is positive. As we move towards separate, we move towards the negative. The more we think we're alone and separated, the more negative we become. That's why narcissists are actually, in many ways, very negative, because they are separate. They're so focused on themselves, they feel alone, and they don't feel like they're connected to the larger group.
Yeah.
Ego means edging God out. And so with the ego, we prop up our ego because we actually feel weak. So we prop up this ego to feel powerful. So to me, it's about mental wellness is knowing you are one with everyone and everything, and you're not separate, and you're connected to the love of God, and you are that love.
Awesome. Last question I'd like to ask is, when you think about, so you just talked about mental wellness. I'm wondering, what mental wellness advice would you give to your younger self, as early as yesterday or any time in the past?
Everything we talked about, is the advice that I always give myself. The books I've written is always the advice I would give to myself, or I want to give to my kids, with a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old, and a son who has struggled with mental health during the quarantine, the isolation during COVID.
Yeah.
He was one of those people that really, really struggled, lost his purpose, lost his way, lost his identity. Now he's back, thank God. Most challenging time of my life, being there with him, supporting him and
Yes.
encouraging him, but then seeing him rebound and overcome is also part of the story, right? The resilience. But I would tell myself that there's a plan for your life, and do your best and let God do the rest. And everybody is searching for love. We have all those songs. Everybody's searching for love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? When you become love, that means everyone's now searching for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you become a source of love, people will be searching for you. So you'll attract it to you. You don't have to go chase it. Like everyone's chasing love. No, just become a source of love and love others, and you'll attract love to you. And so I think that's a big part of what I would tell myself. And I would also tell myself, talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself.
Mm.
Don't listen to all the negative thoughts. Don't listen to those negative voices. And even I say listen to yourself. They're not really coming from you, but don't listen. But speak truth, speak words of encouragement, speak life. Be the kind of person that supports yourself on a daily basis instead of beating yourself up. And that's how you win the battle of your mind. Because we know, George, I was losing the battle for many years. And I know what that's like. And it's painful, it's hard, and you don't feel like you're ever going to get out of it. And too many people are giving up, and they're even giving up their lives.
Yes.
And as you know, both of us, we're passionate about impacting people's lives. And I don't want to lose one more life. A woman, Nina Polhoki, she was a news anchor in Wisconsin, played basketball at USF. It was on Twitter that she committed suicide, and all over the media. And the New York Post reported that her last tweet was a retweet of mine. It was one of my quotes about, we're not positive because life is easy. We're positive because life is hard. Yeah. And she talked about how the best is yet to come, reiterating my quote. And seeing that and knowing that she read it, she shared it, and yet still decided to give up is so painful. Yeah. And I think to myself, I just wish I would have reached out. I wish I would have talked to her. I wish I would have known she followed me and been able to share with her. Yeah. And so to me, I don't want to lose one more life. So don't listen to those negative voices. Keep speaking words of life to yourself on a daily basis. Encourage yourself. The word encourage means to put courage into. So when you encourage yourself, you're putting courage into yourself. And when you encourage others, you're putting courage into them. And to me, that's what we got to do. So that's what I would tell myself. And that's what I want to do for others.
Oh, Jon, I appreciate you sharing all of that. And, even what you shared with your son, I've seen it with so many young folks, even, with my own son, and seeing him and his trajectory over this time, and seeing the victory. And even what you shared, about the reporter, Nina, and I feel that way too, right? I feel that way about, I don't want to lose another life. I don't want to lose another marriage. I don't want to lose another, struggle with parenting. Like, I want people to be at their best. And how can I be a part of that journey for them? And I love that you've been a part of that journey, giving people positivity, clarity, helping them connect to love, helping them be one, connect to oneness. And the way that you're doing it in so many different ways is just not only inspiring, but amazing and a part of the path. And I'm glad that you were willing to just spend this time with me and share. And so, is there anything else that you haven't shared? I mean, there's so much we could talk about that we didn't get a chance to, but is there anything else that you'd want to share before we wrap up?
No, I just appreciate the work that you do and the relationships that you help keep strong, keep together over the years. We know that relationships are hard. We know that the more divided people feel, they want to give up as a result of being divided. The word anxious actually means divided at its Greek root word. So in this world now, there's more anxiety. So people feel more divided,
Yeah.
and relationships are feeling more divided. But what does someone like you do who is great at what you do, knowledgeable, caring, loving? You bring people together. You bring the love and the care and the wisdom and the knowledge that helps people connect, right? And experience the oneness of their relationship that keeps them together. So instead of being divided, which destroys the relationship, they become one and united. What is intimacy but connection?
Yeah.
So I just appreciate the work that you do. It's everything. It's necessary. And if I had to say, like, what's the most important mission on earth, it's keeping people uniting and uniting others instead of letting people feel and be divided.
Well, thanks for that, John. And we met in New York in the at the for the Today Show. We reconnected in L.A. A few years back, and so
Yep.
I'm looking forward to the return tour. I really do believe at some point down in the future, you and I will do something together, and I'm looking forward to that moment. And because I really love how you impact people and the way you do it, and the way that you just show up and just being you. So I look forward to those days.
Well, thanks, George. I can't wait to be on your TV show in the future.
Yeah, all right. It's coming.
I'm calling it right now. I'm saying
Uh,
it. We're going to play this a couple of years from now, and they go, John called it.
That's right. I
All
fully believe it. Thanks,
right,
John.
George. Thank you so much.
Wow. What an incredible ride we just went on with another great member of the Leapcast community. I appreciate you listening and hope you got some tangible value from the episode. Please let us know what you think by leaving a comment, rating, and review. As always, please don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This is Dr. George James, and I'll see you next time.